Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to really cut through the noise. We're taking the latest market outlooks from JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, all the new banking data, and we're going to distill it into an actual plan for your cash. And we are in such a strange environment right now. I mean, our sources are using this term multidimensional polarization.
Right.
Think about it. You've got this AI supercycle driving huge corporate spending, maybe even double-digit growth for the S&P 500. But at the same time, the labor market is softening. There's real anxiety out there. It's like two different economies.
And that split, it creates a huge problem for savers because we're looking at all this right after the Fed's December 2025 rate cut. That was the third cut of the year. So we are definitely moving out of that peak savings rate environment. Analysts are calling it yield normalization.
So the party's over, basically. The days of getting 4.5% or 5% APY without even trying they're fading. So our mission is pretty clear. Where do you put your liquid cash right now? And how do you protect the yield you have from the next Fed cut? Let's get into it.
Okay, so to set the stage, we need to know where the Fed stands. After that December cut, that 25 basis point reduction, the Fed funds rate is now sitting in the 3.50% to 3.75% range.
Which sounds like easing, usually a good thing. But the forecasts are already calling for more cuts. What's that look like?
So the models, the econometric models, they're suggesting the rate will keep trending down. We could hit a terminal rate of 3.25% by the middle of 2026. Markets are pricing in probably two more quarter-point cuts.
March and June?
And at this consensus, yeah. So it's getting easier for borrowers, but definitely tougher for savers.
So if the Fed is easing, doesn't that mean they feel pretty good about the economy? How does that square with the JP Morgan recession risk you mentioned?
That is the paradox. That's the whole polarization thing. JP Morgan's research still puts a 35% probability on a U.S. and global recession in 2026.
35% is not small.
Not at all. And it's not being driven by the usual suspects like housing or inflation. It's coming from weak business sentiment and really sluggish demand, outside of the tech and AI space. And if you want to see how this connects to your actual life, just look at the labor market. We're seeing real stress there, especially for younger college grads. The unemployment rate for graduates between 20 and 24, it's climbed to 8.5%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a 70% jump from the lows in 2022. It could be an early sign that AI and all these efficiency measures are starting to replace some of those entry-level jobs, which, just makes having a solid emergency fund even more critical.
That context is everything. So just to be clear, we have rising job risk for individuals, this polarization at the exact same time the S&P 500 could be soaring. The silver lining for investors is huge.
It is.
Yeah.
JP Morgan is positive on global equities. They're forecasting double-digit gains, all fueled by AI. We're talking 13 to 15% earnings growth over the next 2 years.
So your 401k could be doing great, but you might be worried about your paycheck.
Precisely. And that's the key takeaway here. Your liquid cash, your emergency fund, it has to be a buffer against that job risk.
Right.
But it also has to fight inflation. That's why getting a good yield on it is more important than ever.
Right. So this anxiety means our cash has to work harder. But let's talk about those headlines. I still see articles everywhere advertising 5% savings rates. Is that real for the average person with, say, $20,000 or $50,000 in savings?
In early 2026, it's pretty much a mirage. I mean, that 5.00% APY technically exists, but it's only in these really niche accounts with trade-offs that, frankly, make them useless for a real emergency fund.
Okay, let's get specific. What are the trade-offs?
Well, take Vero Bank. They'll offer you 5.00% APY, but that rate is capped at just $5,000. Anything over that earns a much lower 2.50%. And to even get that rate, you have to have at least $1,000 in direct deposits every single month.
$5,000 cap. I mean, that's not an emergency fund for a lot of people.
Exactly. Or you have places like Hope Rewards Checking, and they might offer up to 5.12%, but you have to jump through all these monthly hoops. We're talking like 12 debit card purchases, specific electronic transactions. It's a part-time job.
So we basically have to ignore that 5% number completely if we're talking about a main savings account?
For a simple, no-fuss emergency fund, absolutely. And you have to remember, the national average for a normal savings account is still, 0.39%? It's terrible. So the real competitive space, the sweet spot for high yield without all the behavioral hoops, has settled into that 3.30% to 3.65% APY range.
Okay, so that's the new battleground, 3.3 to 3.65. Is that actually enough, though? Is it keeping up with inflation?
It is. And that's the good news. We look at core PCE inflation. That's the Fed's preferred measure. And the projection for 2026 is that it will fall to around 2.4%. So if you're earning 3.50% on your cash, you're still getting a healthy 1.1% positive real return. Your money is actually growing faster than the cost of living.
All right, that sets the scene. So let's zoom in on the big players in that sweet spot, that 3.3 to 3.65 range. Ally, Marcus, and Discover. And the choice here really depends on what you value most, right? Is it pure yield, flexibility, or rewards?
It is. And just for some context, the J.D. Power Customer Satisfaction Survey from last year, 2025, it ranked Marcus at number 3, Discover at 4, and Ally at 5 among these direct banks. So they're all trusted names. It's not just about the rate.
Let's start with Marcus. Marcus by Goldman Sachs. You're calling them the yield purist.
Because that's all they focus on. Their whole offering is a high, stable yield, and they keep it incredibly simple. Their online savings APY right now is 3.65%. No fees, no minimums. It's just raw rate with the least amount of friction.
And they have that referral program, right? The little trick to boost it.
Yes, exactly. This is for the really dedicated saver. The Marcus Referred program lets you get an extra 0.25% bonus for 3 months for every person you refer. You can do that up to 5 times a year, so you could potentially get your APY up to 3.90% for a good chunk of the year.
But Marcus doesn't have a checking account. So how useful is their same-day transfer feature if you still have to pull the money to an outside bank? That seems like a big weakness.
It's a fair point, but they handle it better than most. They do offer same-day transfers up to $100,000 if you do it before noon Eastern. And, more importantly, your interest starts earning the day you initiate the transfer, as long as it's before 6 p.m., so you don't lose a day's interest on a big transfer.
That's a nice little detail.
It is.
Yeah.
But you're right, the structural limit is still there. No
Yeah.
checking, no branches, no ATMs.
Okay, so next up is Discover Bank, the integrated rewards consumer. But we have to talk about the elephant in the room with Discover right away.
Yes, this is the crucial note. After the Capital One acquisition, which went through in May of 2025, Discover is no longer offering its banking products to new applicants.
Wow, so if you don't already have an account, you can't get one.
You are out of luck. If you're an existing customer, you're grandfathered in. The rate is still good at 3.40% APY. But for anyone listening today hoping to open one, it's off the table.
So for those existing customers, what's the reason to stick with them at a slightly lower 3.40%?
Their value is all about the fee-free ecosystem. It's trust. They have zero fees for basically everything. Monthly maintenance, insufficient funds, account closure, bank checks, all zero. That gives people a real sense of security, and it's meant to be integrated. If you also have their cashback debit account, you get 1% cash back on up to $3,000 in purchases a month. For some people, that cash back actually creates a better total return than a slightly higher APY. The only real catch is that strict 6 withdrawal limit per month.
Okay, that makes sense. So that leaves Ally Bank, the functional utility provider, and they're at the lower end of this range, right?
They are. Ally's strategy is all about flexibility and tools. Their base APY is 3.30%, so it's the lowest of these three. But what you lose in yield, you definitely gain in convenience. Ally has a great checking account, and their ATM access is the best, hands down. Over 75,000 fee-free all-point and MoneyPass ATMs. Plus, they'll even reimburse you up to $10 a month if you use an out-of-network ATM.
So they're really the most practical option if you need to get your hands on your cash immediately without waiting for a bank transfer.
Exactly. And they have fantastic tools for people who like to organize their savings. They have these saving sub-accounts, they call them buckets, so you can label your goals, new car, vacation, whatever, all inside one account. And their safe-to-save features help you automate your savings habits. The main limitation, besides the lower rate, is a withdrawal limit of 10 per month, which is better than Discover 6.
Okay, so this whole discussion hinges on rates going down. If the Fed really is going to cut twice more this year, what's the move? How do we protect the yield we have today?
This is where the certificate of deposit, the CD, becomes so important. A CD is basically insurance for your interest rate. You are locking in today's high rate because you know rates will be lower tomorrow. And the market proves that CD yields are actually higher than liquid savings APYs right now. So for example, Marcus is offering a 12-month high-yield CD at a guaranteed 4.00% APY. And the minimum is only $500. That's a pretty big step up from their 3.65% savings rate.
But wait, if there's a 35% recession risk, isn't locking up your emergency fund in a CD a huge liquidity risk? What if I lose my job and I need that money now?
That's a great question. And it's exactly why specialty CDs exist. They're designed to hedge against that uncertainty. The first one is the no-penalty CD. Marcus has an 11-month one at 3.95% APY.
No penalty. So you can just take the money out.
You can. It lets you withdraw early without paying a penalty. So you get the higher locked-in rate, but you keep your flexibility in case something unexpected happens. It's the perfect bridge product.
That seems like a no-brainer for at least part of an emergency fund.
It really is. And the other specialized product is the rate bump CD, which both Allie and Marcus offer. This is for the person who's worried that inflation might spike again. It lets you raise your rate once during the term if the bank's rates go up, so you're protected from rates falling, and also from rates unexpectedly rising. It covers both sides.
Okay, let's wrap this up and bring it back to you, the listener. What our deep dive shows is that the real fight for your liquid cash in early 2026 is happening around that 3.5% APY mark. You have a choice to make. And with Discover now closed to new people, it's really down to two main players.
Right. You're basically choosing between Marcus's slightly higher pure yield or Allie's amazing utility and ATM access. And this choice actually points to a bigger shift. That same J.D. Power survey found that support during challenging times has now overtaken yield as the #1 reason people stay loyal to a direct bank.
So people, especially younger consumers like Gen Z and millennials, they're starting to value the tools and the customer service, maybe even more than a few extra basis points. They want a bank that feels like it has their back when things get weird.
Exactly. It's not just a numbers game anymore. It's about how that bank fits into your financial safety net.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to chew on. We know core PCE inflation is expected to be around 2.4%. We also know the best 12-month CDs are offering a guaranteed 4.00% APY. So the question you have to answer today is this. How much of your emergency fund do you keep completely liquid in a 3.65% savings account ready at a moment's notice? Versus how much do you lock up in 4.00% CD to guarantee that return against the 2 more Fed cuts we expect to see? That allocation, that's your entire cash strategy for 2026.